And thank you for joining us for this wonderful show. I'm going to start it correctly and play this.
Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Righty. Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful 166th show of the Laughter for All podcast, which, by the way, 2 weeks ago, we were at number 25 in the comedy podcast stand-up. So it's really, we're doing well. We're doing well in different countries, in Canada, in Ukraine, in Jordan, and in India. So we're doing very well. So anyway, we have a great show. I have a new friend that I met in North Dakota. I want to bring him on in a little bit. Hopefully everything will work with the sound and everything. Remember, we're talking, but he's in Nashville right now, so we'll talk to him in a little bit. Right now, I'd like to just let you know, happy Resurrection Day. I hope you had a wonderful time. You went to church. Some of you did the sunrise service. Some of you got lazy. Some of you, but I hope you went to church. I hope you remembered why we celebrate Resurrection Day and how important it is to our lives. So it's really important. So thank you. I had the pleasure of being at a celebration on the shore in Oceanside at the amphitheater, the Oceanside Amphitheater. It was wonderful, and we had a great time, and people received Christ. So it was wonderful. Anyway, I drove back home, took my wife and my daughter, and we went to a family picnic where we do every Resurrection Day, and John and Carol joined me. So it was a fun time with the family and everyone else. Hope you had a great time. Well, I want to invite my friend, and hopefully everything is working right now. And he is the Artist of the Year with the Academy of Western Artists in 2020. So his name is Greg Hager. I'm going to bring him up, and then if he's on, I will introduce him officially. So, Greg, are you there?
I'm here. Do you see and hear me?
I can see you and hear you. You look beautiful. Let me
Thank
get
you.
people. Who do we have here? Okay, you guys know that my 50th state that I performed at, it was last year in North Dakota, first time, and I get to meet Greg. We were doing something for Teen Challenge, and just the nicest guy, wonderful voice. He is also the 2020 Artist of the Year with the Academy of Western Artists. He's nominated for induction into the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame in the Western Arts and Entertainment category. His rural Western roots run deep, and he writes and sings about the life he knows and lives. Valuable lessons about honesty, integrity, and keeping your word no matter what were instilled at an early age and from the backdrop of his musical perspective. Those values are timeless and resonate with everyone, which is why so many identify strongly with his music. Hager writes everything that he sings, and his style is heavily influenced by other great 12-string guitar pickers and storytellers like John Denver, Clint Black, and George Strait, and many others. His style is described as easygoing, melodic, and clever, relating to more traditional country and Western music prior to the pop culture influence. Here's the last one. A Nashville produced musician, which he is already in Nashville right now. Actually, he's taking a break from the recording session to be with us. He has recorded and released 9 CDs of 100% original music. In fact, he's the only artist in North Dakota history to do so. 5 of his albums are positive Western-style country songs, 1 Christmas album bringing joy to the holidays, and 2 albums of country gospel music that brings the good news to song. His Nice is an EP in Japanese. We'll talk about that. Greg, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
I am so glad to be here. It's good to see you virtually. It was good to spend time with you in North Dakota.
I know. Why North Dakota? Was it your choice or your parents' choice?
I'm afraid I didn't have a choice in that matter.
You could have moved, right?
I could have moved. I was out of state for a while. I had some jobs that took me out of state, but I actually moved back home right next to where my roots are, right next to where I grew up.
What is that? What town is that in North Dakota?
Near Valley City. It's about 60 miles west of Fargo on Interstate 94.
And how many people live in the entire city there?
About 6,000 people.
Oh, okay. That's a lot, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
not compared to Los Angeles, but
I saw one of your Facebook stuff where your truck is going through like two walls of snow and it's just going, and this is normal, right?
well, this year seemed like we had a storm with snow and wind about once a week, and it's a little bit more snow than average, but we didn't break any records yet. It just, when the wind blows, the snow will drift up. So even a small amount of snow can end up piling really, really thick.
So what is
And
it about North Dakota that you feel like, okay, this is better than being anywhere else?
one of the things that obviously I grew up there, so you have all of the feelings, the emotions of this is my home, this is my roots, this is what made me into the person that I am. But um, living on the road as you do, as I do, I've been able to look at a lot of different places, and I think of where do I want to live. And then we've been blessed with three children, my wife and I, and we've decided, where do we want to raise our kids? Do we
Mm.
want to be in the city, or do we want to be in an environment that has values, that has you know a different mentality than some of the cities and other states have. And North Dakota is a conservative place. It's a land of opportunity. You can fish every single day of the year in North Dakota. We've got great hunting and great outdoor and incredibly beautiful summers. Just lots of different things that just tell me, nah, you don't want to live anyplace else. Always come back to North Dakota.
Thank you. Welcome to the North Dakota travel
Well,
ambassador. That was good. What do you hunt? Do you actually hunt, Greg?
I do love to hunt. I love the deer hunt. I do like to waterfowl hunt for ducks and geese, although that takes a little bit more time, and time in these days seems to be a little bit short with all of the travel and how busy things are. But yeah, I do love to hunt. It's enjoyable, whether I shoot anything or not, just to be out in nature and to observe, what God created, and get to say, I get to watch this, or I get to see animals, or just to breathe and not be in a city environment, it's really special.
That's awesome. Now, was your father or your mother into music? Did they play?
Yeah, interestingly, I did grow up in a musical family, and both on my dad's side, my grandma and my aunts played piano and did some singing. My dad plays guitar. He's the one who taught me to play guitar. On my mom's side of the family, every family get together, Christmas or Thanksgiving or any other family holiday, always seemed like the family ended up around the piano singing hymns or other songs or things like that. And so I guess I maybe couldn't escape some of those musical influences.
Now, why did you pick Western and country? If there's a difference, tell us. Yeah, well, let people
Yeah,
know because we're Californians. Some of us don't understand. What's the difference between a Western and a country?
yeah. So the reason that I gravitate toward that style or genre of music is I love stories.
Mm.
And in the Western and country styles of music, it's about telling a story. And in the last couple of years, country music has expanded beyond its regular boundaries, and country can now include rap, it can include rock elements, it can include blues, and isn't necessarily stylistically just about the story, whereas Western music really still gravitates to life and living and love, cattle, country, faith, all of those great stories that really connect with people. And so that's really why I gravitate into the Western style of country.
Now, this is might be a silly question, but I don't mind. I love asking questions. Why do country singers always try to sing from their nose? Is that true or no?
But it seems that way. There's an unwritten observation that the people who grow up legitimately on the land, who grew up on horseback or with that actually do that, don't necessarily sing that way. And the artists who are a country artist are trying to mimic what they think we actually sound like.
Ah,
And so that twang or that nasal or kind of what they think is going to be a very country or rural sound to me, it feels it's a fabricated sound rather than naturally, because you talk to people and that's not what you hear when you talk with them, and it becomes kind of pretend when they're singing.
Yeah, it's just interesting when I noticed that. But uh, so when you grew up, like, this is what you wanted to sing Western? You didn't think like I just want to be a regular maybe pop artist or something, or was that the music you grew up with?
I grew up with great artists like Roger Whittaker and John Denver and Gordon Lightfoot. A lot of gospel music growing up. The Statler brothers, the Blackwood brothers, the Gaither music. I mean, all this really great music was part of the fabric of my life. But when I was 7 years old, I learned to play guitar, and I actually wrote my first song when I was 7. And I felt God's call on my life at the time that I wanted to use music to try to make a difference. And so stylistically, as my writing became more, I just gravitated toward the story and the music that seemed to best support the story that made connections with people did fall into the Western and country style.
Now, so you said as a young age, you felt that the Lord. I mean, when did you become a believer, Greg?
Uh, Somewhere between 6 and 7 years old.
Wow. And that was you stayed the course, right?
I have stayed the course, and I look back on my life, and in contrast to some of my friends who came to faith later in life, I can see what types of things I was spared from because I understood that Jesus is the only way to have a good and a pure life and a life that has meaning. And I don't have to run down all these other roads and make mistakes and all of these bad decisions. I can look back and see that I count it as a blessing that I realized that I wanted Jesus in my life as a young boy.
So what was, I mean, just to, because there's a lot of people listening or watching and saying, well, uh, my kids grew up in a Christian family, but they geared away from the faith. And what was different for you that made you, I mean, at that age, continue like age, 15, 16, 17, when normally teens, stray away. What do you think made you stick to your faith?
Certainly I would have to say, in my case, the family influence at, our church in our small town had Sunday morning, Sunday night services, and Wednesday night services. And it was always something that we did. If church was open, we were there for an activity. I had the privilege of being active in a youth group and had peer support, people that were just like me that we had activities with. And so I wasn't ever alone. I was always kind of with people that thought a little bit like me. And, for whatever reason, coming to faith early and looking at people around me, I realized, I just want to follow Jesus. And, I would say that maybe in my case was why I didn't stray like some others have, is that I just realized there's no answer that means anything outside of Jesus, and I just want to get to know him better and to pursue my life, my dream, my calling of trying to make a difference with music.
Wow. What was your dream back then when you were like 10, 11, 12 as a singer? What was your dream?
Well, when you're a kid, you sort of have maybe a twisted aspiration that you should be on what you've seen on TV, an audience that's several thousand people in deep, or that you're making connections or autograph lines that are, miles long, that people just want to get to meet you. And I would say that's probably some of what I thought of as a kid, that, oh, this is what being famous would be like. This is really cool. And as I grow and mature, I realize, that's not really, it's not wrong, but I don't want to chase things like that. I want to make connections.
When did that happen, or does it once in a while come back? You go,
Um,
man, why can't I have 10,000 people here. I'm good. I write my own music. I sing my own lyrics. What do
Yeah,
you?
it's funny you should say that because my wife Andrea is here in the studio with me in Nashville, and we were talking about that both yesterday and today when we came into town, and then today we were doing a bunch of studio work with vocals and visiting and saying, I'm doing what very few artists actually do, in that I write everything I sing, I play, and I'm a 100% original artist. Why can't I get a break when these other people that don't, can't, aren't somehow get the accolades? And I don't know the answer to that. There's obviously circumstances that go into the making of an artist in this genre in particular, in the country music, and Nashville sort of brings up all these images, of course. But yeah, I still think that I would like to have an audience like that. But my reason is this, Nazareth, is I want success for what success can allow me to do. I
Mm,
don't seek money to be wealthy, but I'm grateful for the money that I get because then I can move forward, and I want to be able to pour into other people's lives and to inspire them and help them to grow. So it's not self-serving interest when I look at an auditorium and say, man, I'd like to sell out a 10,000 seat auditorium just once. That would be cool, but it's what it, in my case, what I think it would allow me to do, and that's to just keep moving forward, making great music, making connections, and inspiring people, and maybe helping some other people to be able to follow their dream. A hand up, if you will, not a handout.
right. Now you're the only one in North Dakota that actually write your own songs and sing your own songs. You don't. You're all original. Uh, why is that? Why don't you take maybe someone's great lyrics and maybe sing those? Or,
Early on, I did that. Well, I guess first I should say I don't know if I'm the only one who's 100% original in North Dakota, but I can't name another person right off. But for folks that are watching, I don't want to, be said, well, Greg said, I don't know that I'm the only one, but I'm the only one that I know of who does. So to your question, why don't I retake and personalize lyrics? I actually tried that some in the early days of my traveling. I would do like I've been compared to George Strait or an Alan Jackson with the way that I deliver songs. And I would sing some of their songs from the stage, and I would get things like, well, Greg, I like that, but you didn't sing it like Alan Jackson, or you
mm,
didn't sing that like George did. And the light bulb went off for me saying, well, okay, well, the answer is I don't need to do other people's music. I need to do my music. So if they don't like it, it's not because I didn't do it as well as what they heard in their own mind. It's just that they didn't like my music.
I see. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. But so now, what is the process now? Right now, you're recording your ninth album. You're in Nashville. Why Nashville? Why can't you have a studio in where you live?
You sure can. With the style of music that I do, uh, Nashville is the mecca of country music artists, people who eat, breathe, live, think, bleed country, live right here in Nashville. My record label is here. MFG Records is here in Nashville. My producer, Dave Signs, is here in Nashville. And so when I go to him and say, this is the album I want to create, these are the sound that I want, he's able to pick from the players that are the best in the literal world to be a part of my project to actually create new music. In Nashville, sometimes people will say, well, if you think of milk, there's milk, and then there's cream that floats on top of milk. And then in Nashville, you've got the layer that floats on top of the cream. So you've got the best of the best of the best musicians that are right here locally, most of them starving to death, but that are available to work and do session recording to create good music. So like at home, there are studios in North Dakota, but one day they might record blues, one day they might record rap or some other genre of music. And so they're kind of being a one size fits all versus being in a studio and an environment where it's country. People think country. So when I say I want this kind of feel or this kind of sound, it's just their instinct to play it exactly how I'm thinking it.
Okay, for us lay people that have no clue what is a recording like and your okay, take us from point zero. Okay, now you want to do a new album. So what do? You have to write 10 or 9 or 10 songs, and then you have to, what do you do when you get to Nashville? So what how long does it take you to do one song, and what's the process? Do you take a story, or do you write the melody first, then you add a story?
Sure. One of the as a songwriter, I find that and you tell jokes, you write jokes.
Right.
Sometimes the craziest thing could be the inspiration for the next story or joke or something. So I travel with a notebook, and I always am thinking about the idea, the creative process. What can I write? How can I capture this situation? So I'm constantly writing. So in this case, getting ready to record. This is my 10th album. It's a country gospel project. When I had been, compiling my songs and said, "Hey, I've got enough good songs that are ready for an album," I contacted my producer and said, "Okay, I'm ready to reserve studio time, and I'm going to make a 10-song country gospel album." And so then we booked the studio, secured the studio time, and he secured session players. I spent time with my songs, my lyrics, making sure that those 10 that I picked out were 100% ready to make permanent through the writing process or through the recording process. So then when I talk with Dave Sines, my producer, we digest every song and say, this song, this is why I wrote it. Here's a background on it. Here's the feel that I want with it. Here's all of the stuff, to give him the picture of it. And then I sing and play it for him. And he takes some notes and I take some notes, and we figure out, okay, how are we best going to do that? And we do that for each of the 10 songs before we start to do any of the recording. And then, for your listeners, then the approach to recording can have different facets to it. In the case of this album, my producer also has a studio down in Florida. And so I had some shows in Florida a few weeks ago, and we did what's called the rhythm tracking. We laid down drums and bass guitar and the rhythm guitar at the studio in Florida. And then now that we're up here at the Nashville studio, all the other players are going to start coming in the next days. We'll add all of the other ear candies. Like today, we did final vocals for Andrea and I for these 10 songs. And tomorrow we'll be adding lead guitar. The next day will be steel guitar and some of the other ear candy that we call it ear candy, the stuff that makes it like, beautiful, panache, lovely, ear candy things. And so, by the time Friday comes around, in this case, about a week and a half project of total time, we'll have almost a final mix ready by the time I leave the studio at the end of this week. And the next step is we leave the song for a week or two, or the songs. Then the producer will listen to it. Dave will listen to it. I'll listen to it, and I'll take some notes just so time separates and lets what did I hear, the excitement in the studio, letting everything kind of settle in so that I can realize, here's a little tweak I want to make, or we need to add something in this sound hole. And then a final mix will be made. That final mix will then go to mastering, which takes that sound mix and makes it in the right sound density. It fills to make a CD sound full volume, or like when you turn on the radio, that it's radio level ready. Wow. And then that'll go. I've got a design artist who's starting to work right now on the artwork for the new album. She will finish that. I will give approval to the artwork. The master that's created and the artwork will go together to a replication house here in Nashville, and then the final product will be made, and then the distribution begins through the electronic formats as well as the physical formats through the stores at Amazon, iTunes, Walmart's, all of the different stores. Then we'll have access, hopefully by mid-June, that will be. So you can if you're ready, you can really focus a project down. In contrast, I know people who might take a year to do a 10 song album. I don't have that much time. I just go to the studio. I'm ready. I'm ready to do the work. I'm ready with vocals. I'm ready to play my guitar flawlessly. I need to get this done so I can get new music out for continuing to travel and entertain and make a connection.
That's very interesting. Now, do some of the players, like let's say the steel guitar, do they play by themselves and then it's added, or they're listening to the other players and they're playing?
Yeah, so everything becomes layering. So the man who's coming tomorrow is Mike Baker. Mike has played on. He was a Grand Ole Opry. He was the player. He's played several thousand times on the Grand Ole Opry over the last 45 years. He's probably the best player in Nashville, but he's good friends with my producer, and so everything that Mike is going to be adding will be on top of everything we've done so far. So he's going to have drums, he's going to have bass guitar, he's going to have my guitar, he'll have my final vocals, and everything he adds then will be another layer on top of what's been done. When the steel guitar player comes on in 2 days on Thursday, he will be able to build his parts on top of the other layers. So as those extra ear candy, we call it ear candy because it's like, oh, that was nice, that was perfect. When you're adding all those extra, the audible details, they've got that whole basis of what's already been done. How do I add and make this better rather than just making something up and trying to mash it onto the album? They get to add and supplement another layer.
Wow. So how do you let's see, when you let's say you write a song yourself and you put the music to it, how do you know it's not, and this is something comedians are challenged with, how do you know it's not some music you listened to in the past, long time ago, and it's stuck to your head and it's coming in?
That's a really great question. Because in music, if you copy 6 notes directly, exactly 6 notes in the melody, the timing, everything that's something else, you have a potential for a copyright infringement. Is that you would have plagiarized someone else's idea or someone else's lyric or song. And so, the benefit that I have, Dave has been making albums in Nashville for 43 years. So any music that's been produced in the last 40 some years, he's had a finger on or he's been exposed to. And so when I give him my melodies, sometimes he's like, that's kind of similar to this other one. Maybe you need to rewrite that. Or, he'll say, sounds good. But there is a chance that in the recesses of my mind, maybe I did, capitalize on a certain number of notes that someone else did. I try very hard to make sure that everything that I come up with, is original, but there is that chance. I don't know of any way to reference a database to say, have I copied close enough that someone might say that I've, stolen their idea or their.
Never meant that. I mean, sometimes you hear it a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that so who pays for all that? The record company, right?
The record companies are different now than it used to be. There are still some scenarios where, in a sense, they own you, and the record label will pay for everything. In my case, I have the benefit of being signed to a label in Nashville, so I have inside access to some of the inner workings of Nashville. I'm still, for the most part, privately funded for all of my album projects. So anything creative that I want to do, nobody else tells me what to do. It's, I'm not owned at that level. If I want to go play a Christian festival or a Western festival or a rodeo or a hire for a grandstand event, I can make those decisions because I'm not owned to that level by the record label.
Do you think they're still selling like physical CD? Do people still buy those?
I sell hundreds and sometimes thousands of physical CDs a year on top of the downloads. So at least, and maybe it's part because I live in the upper Midwest, that people still want to touch things. I find overseas, people still want to touch a physical disc. That it means more because then they can get an autograph. They've got something to, remember the moment by. But I have tons more electronic downloads of my music, but I still sell an awful lot of physical product.
Now, you mentioned international, and you said you have an album in Japanese. How many times were you in? You went to Japan to
Yeah,
perform?
I have done 3 concert tours in Japan to date. On May 7th, I'll be back in Japan. Both Andrew and I will be in Japan for um, about 3 weeks and a day back. So it'll be my 4th concert tour in Japan in May.
And how many shows would you do in that 3 week period?
About 21, so almost one a day. And what's really interesting, and I like it, is you'll do a concert in the evening, and then somebody will know somebody, and they'll come to one of my concert coordinators and say, hey, can Greg make an appearance at this private party, or can he stop at the school and talk with the kids? Or so there's always these daytime things that get added, or can he stop in and do a radio or a TV interview? So my actual appearances typically, is well into the 20s, if not closer to 30 different appearances, in a 3 week period.
And who's your audience there?
The what's interesting is that the Japanese people will look at the American cowboy and have the American cowboy not quite at the same level as their samurai, but the American cowboy is iconic in Japan. And so my typical audience is, a middle-aged and older person. The people who grew up following the rebuilding of World War II, even into the 1970s and 80s, when American country music was more prevalent in Japan. But I found the last couple of trips that the younger generation are saying, we've never heard music like Greg does. And not that they understand everything, but they tell me things like, we feel things in your music. We feel your heart when I sing in English. I do a couple songs in Japanese, but they say, we feel things when you're playing and singing. And whether it's family values music, which I do a lot of in Japan, or if I'm doing gospel and referencing the one true God, has made a difference in my life, and he's not angry with them, little truth that I can share that's in addition to their cultural experiences, helps or causes them to think differently and say, we feel things. I don't understand what you said, but I'm touched by what you said. It's an interesting experience.
Now, what do you call? So you sing a couple songs in Japan. Do you speak Japanese, or you just?
I do not. I know just enough words to be courteous, to say hello or excuse me or where's the restroom. The little courtesy words. So I very much am grateful for translators who travel with me and will be the intermediary between me and the audience. Now, interestingly, almost all Japanese study English through their 8th grade. So they have a working knowledge of English, at least from the reading and even speaking it, but they don't always practice it. So sometimes the audiences of all ages they'll talk after a concert because they want to finally get to talk American English rather than Japanese English.
Wow, that's interesting. So, what? I've never been to Japan. I'm intrigued to go to Japan. What is it like when you're there? Is people polite, nicer? The audience is better than here, different.
The thing that is different, I would say, between a typical American audience and the regular Japanese audience is the Japanese audiences they'll be quiet and they will listen. That it seems like some American audiences, you're playing, you're singing, maybe you're telling your jokes, and they're having a different conversation that is, they're not listening to what you're doing. So my experience with the concerts in Japan is that, they come to listen. they want to take it all in, that it's a concert experience and they don't want to miss a second of it.
Mm.
And maybe it's the style of music, maybe it's the Western country, American cowboy music influence I bring, but that's my experience, is that they are quiet and they listen and they grab onto every word that they can. And if we're doing if I have translation booklets like I provide at some shows, sometimes you see them taking notes, like, oh, this word, or I want to find out what that says, or they're a very attentive audience. In general, the country of Japan it's a fascinating country. So many thousands of years of history there. But the Japanese people are very courteous. Even if by accident you've offended them, they don't tell you. I mean, they're so courteous that they will just give you the bow and they'll respect you and they'll leave, but you won't know that you bothered them. So they're just an exceptionally courteous people, and I really enjoy my time in Japan. I enjoy the food. I enjoy some of the aspects of culture. I mean, but people are people, no matter where you go. Yeah, even though I don't speak the language, they're still humans. They still have emotions and dreams and hopes and children and family and places they come from. So, even though I'm American, I speak English. They're Japanese. We still are people, and so there's that connection just because it's people talking to people.
Right. Before I get to ask you about your wife and her singing with you and when that started, I want to ask you, you travel a lot. You're all over the place.
Yes, sir.
You're in Michigan, Minnesota, you're in Nashville, you're in Texas. What is something funny that happened to you during the travel? Anything you
Oh, I could probably write a book about funny things that happen from the stage. But in show business, the show must go on. That's rule number one. So I was doing an outdoor concert on the western edge of North Dakota in a small little tourist town called Medora. And I was on one of the stages doing a cowboy themed show. And like I said, it was summertime, and I took a big breath, breathed in, and I sucked in a big fly.
Ouch, a big one.
And the show must go on. So I took my tongue, I tucked the fly up in my lip, and I finished the song.
Ooh.
Audience clapped. I turned around and I tried my best to be gracious, getting rid of the fly. And then I told the audience what happened, and we all had a good laugh. But it's just, it's just like, I don't think anybody really knew what happened until I told them. And then they said, I saw you do something up there. And then, of course, it was just funny. But
That's awesome. Where's your favorite place in the U.S. to perform at?
favorite? Oh, goodness. That's a hard question. Every summer I do a concert in my hometown. And for me, that's one of the special places, partly because it's where I grew up. It's a band shell that's been around since the early 1900s, and I've watched concert after concert event all the years growing up. And for me to get to be on that platform, that venue, and sing to my hometown, that's just extremely rewarding for me personally.
Wow. Now, your wife, Andrea, was she, I mean, she's in your new album as well. Did you guys meet because of your both performers? What's going on there?
We both attended the same Christian university in Olathe, Kansas. We both attended Mid-American Nazarene University, and she tells the story that when she was younger, she would always pray, God, I want to find a man that I can sing with. That's the kind of man I want to marry. And we dated some in college, and when we got married, we would, in church, we'd sing the hymns or whatever happened to be. And then when we transitioned to music full time, that kind of prayer that she had to get to marry a man, be able to sing with a man that she was married to, it just partnered. Everything that we do with music, we do together. I rarely ever travel alone without her. She's always a part of it, and she sings on several songs, does some solo work, primarily does harmony support on the songs, and it's just always was her dream. And obviously I'm grateful that I can make music with my wife.
Now, does she? I mean, when you have three kids, so what was it like performing when the kids were babies?
Well, the kids always traveled with us, and so even from a very young age, they all had jobs that were age appropriate, pulling a cart of merchandise, or learning to make change at the table when they were old enough to make accurate change for product sale. Our oldest daughter Hannah had a great affinity for the stage and understood the work, the aspect of being in front of people and making that audience connection. And so Hannah would sing harmony on songs, and then she was a great vocalist. And so Hannah would also have a handful of songs that she would like to sing, yodeling. She would sing some Susie Boggess songs, just stuff that was her, but she could be a part of the family team. And the two younger kids figured out that they didn't like being in front of an audience very much, and so they became more integral to setting up equipment and taking equipment down, and kind of anything that was in the background that they didn't have to be on stage and say anything.
I'm assuming you're homeschooled, right?
Yes, we did.
So do you guys have a van, or how do you travel when
Yeah.
you get?
When we first started out traveling, we traveled in a minivan, and I pulled my equipment trailer with that. And then the kids grow, and your equipment gets bigger because you're playing bigger events. And so then we traveled in a 15-passenger van, and I pulled a trailer with all my sound equipment, and then all the kids could have their own seat. And then the oldest, graduated from high school and moved on. And so with two kids, we replaced the pickup with a replaced the van with a full-size pickup. And I got better economy pulling the trailer, and I had a dual purpose vehicle for any jobs or things I might do back home. So two kids rode in the back of the pickup, and then they grew up and left. And now it's just Andrea and I, and we still primarily use the pickup to pull the equipment trailer.
Any of them in music professionally?
Not professionally. Our youngest daughter is she's a pastry chef. She lives in Kansas City, Kansas, and decorates cookies for a living. How cool is that? Our son William is a barber. He's out in western North Dakota in Dickinson. And our oldest daughter Hannah, she sings in her church. She's the one who was the singer. She married a rancher from down near Pierre, South Dakota. So she's a rancher's wife, and very active in her church, and does sing, but not professionally.
This is amazing that you grew up in the faith. Your kids grew up in the faith, and it just makes people. Hey, if you have young kids, go to North Dakota, people. This is awesome. What do you call it? What criteria do you use to select your repertoire? Your songs. How do you know this one goes first? This is going to be the best one. This is a filler. Do you have fillers or no?
I try not to. And here's the reason why is I think back to albums that I've purchased that literally only had one good song on. And all the rest of the 9 or 10 or whatever it was like, I don't like any of these. There was only one good song on this album. So I decided, based upon that experience, that I wanted every song that I recorded to be something that I would be proud of listening to myself. So in this case, this is 10 brand new songs. They're kind of a country gospel. It's a country gospel album. They're all gospel music. I spent the last couple of weeks with all 10 songs on my dining room table, and I would practice them, and I would change the order. And I tried to decide, from making an album, what's going to be listenable from song number 1 to song number 10, to where there's any sort of cohesive storytelling or flow to this, or what ones might lead better into the other ones. So those 10 songs that I finalized that I wanted to record, then I'd shuffle the order, and I would sing it from front to end, and I would say, would I listen to it in this order? And I made about 3 changes, and then finally came up with the order that this album will be in. So in my case, it's trial and error. I think about it, but that flow, that connection, what key, what tempo, I try to make something that's listenable, so people will round and round and round and round at the first to go to the last, and they'll go back to the first, and they won't realize that the album just keeps playing because it's different songs, different tempos, different chords, all creatively shuffled together.
Now, do you play any other instrument than the guitar?
I do, but from the stage, I just focus on the guitar, and I play a 12-string guitar. I do play bass guitar. I'm really mediocre on banjo. I'm learning mandolin. But as far as anything that I would do publicly, it's guitar. In church events, sometimes I'll do backup. I'll play bass guitar for that, but really, I just focus on the guitar. And I'll zoom in on the camera. Some people say, "Well, look at your hands." Well, these fingers are, for the neck. They're cut short my fingernails. I finger pick, and so I actually have kind of garishly long fingernails, but it's all for finger picking on the strings.
Is those your real nails, or
Yeah.
I've never
I go to
thought
a salon and I get the acrylic put on top, just like the ladies might go and get their nails done. I get just 4 done. I've been doing it for 22 years, and I get the acrylic over the top of it. It lasts, it's strong. They don't break generally, and they play exactly the same on the strings.
You know what, Greg? I've never in my entire life thought at any point I'll be asking a cowboy, when do you get your nails done? If it was never in any I this is funny. Where do you get your nails done? Oh, I know acrylic. I have 3 daughters, 2 daughters and a wife. I know exactly how much it costs, and I know what colors they do. Let's see what the audience is saying here. Number 1, Maha Riskala, that's my wife. She said, amazing hard work. Alan Goodwin, who's a friend of mine, and he's a big fan, and he says, God make you to be unique. Stay with it. And then we have, let's see, I was part of the world before MTV. Do you find you have to make videos to sell your work?
I have not made a single video. So, if people look up Greg Hager music on YouTube, they will see videos that I've posted. But as far as music videos, I've not done it for a couple of reasons. One, to do it right, it's expensive. And I'm able to sell music because I do concerts. I live on the road. I actually do music shows that people hear what I do live, and I sell music as a result of that. And so in my case, it hasn't made sense to, put the money into a music video just to try to market. That may be changing because our world is becoming so much more audio video, the reels on the social media, the different things to make connections, to get the shares, to do all of that. I may have to reconsider that, but I've not done that yet.
Okay. Is there a name, Alan said, is there a name for the new album yet?
It's going to be called Ain't God Good.
Ain't God Good. And that's gospel Western, right?
That is, yeah, country gospel, yeah.
All right. Let's see. Any other questions before we continue? Okay. Now, you're on what advice do you give people? Like, see, I'm like you. I'm on the road a lot. And I give people, when people say, what advice do you give us when you're traveling?
Yeah.
I always say, keep one key of the hotel room with you even after you check out. You can throw it away when you return the vehicle, the rental, or you get to the airport, because you never know what you forgot, or you have to get back in the door, and it won't open, especially at night. So you have to do that. That's one thing. Another thing I always tell people, when you're late when your flight arrives late and you need to run to your connection, grab a $5 bill, and the guy in the golf cart, those people that take people with handicap and stuff, they will take you to your gate and they will get you there faster. What advice do you have from the road, even not just flying, driving or hotels? What kind of advice do you have to people?
Because those are great, and I do those types of things, Nazareth, for all the reasons you said. One of the things, because I do drive a lot, I almost always will take time to fill up my fuel tank before I go to the hotel at night. And because you never know what the morning is going to hold. And so if you have to leave and go someplace, I need to leave with the full tank of gas rather than I've gotten to the hotel on fumes, and in the morning,
You
oh,
know,
I can't leave. I overslept or whatever, there was a delay or something, and then you've got to stop and spend time to get fuel. So I always finish the day ready to leave the next morning is something that I always do, because you never know what's going to happen. That I typically will always do that second and sometimes the third check to make sure that I got all my gear, because I bring thousands of dollars of sound gear. I mean, lots of pieces for setup, cords, stands, all the stuff. And sometimes people want to help, and I just need to check and double check sometimes that everything made its way out.
now, what do you call it? As far as have you ever had anybody steal your equipment?
I have not had any equipment stolen. I have had music being stolen.
Oh,
But interestingly, the only music out of tens of thousands of albums that have crossed my table, the only music of mine that's ever been stolen has been my gospel music. And I just say, Lord, bless them good. Let them enjoy this. Let this make a difference.
that is awesome. So let's see. We have one more. Ray Cowboy Roy Hill said, "I'm glad for YouTube when I ran across Greg's music, then meeting him at church a few years ago and been friends ever." That's awesome. And Rossetti said, "Here in San Francisco, you have to take a loan to fill up your fuel tank." Of course. Now, what do you call it? So, how can people get a hold of you to book you for stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I am connected on most of the social media sites, Greg Hager or Greg Hager Music, Snapchat, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, both personal and a music page, Instagram, all the I have a Pinterest and a Reddit account, but I don't, I mean, there's just stuff you can spend your whole life and not really work the social media end of it. But the big stuff I'm pretty active on. So folks can reach me there, greghager.com, GREGHAGER.com. Lets them connect. There's a contact page there. They can reach me. I can get a phone number to them personally. It's just greghager.com is a great place to go. But yeah, from a booking, we are a booking. We travel all year round. We just like you. I mean, we're always looking for new places to go and to meet new people and make new connections. And so, through the social media sites, through the website, through Facebook or Instagram or the other sites, we'd love to bring our music to you. Folks can find all my music on Amazon Music, on iTunes, Spotify, all of the streaming sites. You can order my music at any place that you can. 25,000 stores in the U.S. have access to my music. Walmart, Sears, I mean, whatever you have, you can get my music any place that do it, that people order music, and would love to get connected that way and take our brand of music to where they are.
Okay, last question, which is really important. You're a man who grew up in the faith. You had some people, some of your friends geared away or strayed away. You didn't. Your family was raised in the faith. And give some advice and wisdom to maybe parents who are watching or who are going to be listening. How can you in this world keep your kids or your family or keep yourself walking with the Lord?
I think the biggest thing, and certainly for me, and the way I look at it, you've got to be in the Bible. There's so many negative influences in the world that are out there that you've got to keep the Word of God poured into your life so that you can combat with God's holy Word against all of the influences of the world coming at you. You've got to be praying, and if in the case of a child or a spouse or someone that has wandered from the faith, keep praying. My favorite story in the New Testament is the cripple when Jesus was in Capernaum, and when the friends let him down to Jesus, the scripture says that when Jesus saw the faith of the friends, that's when the healing came. And that inspires me in that same way that I need to continue to pray even when I don't see results, because I don't know what God will do in his time, because I was willing to be praying for it. And the third thing I would say for those folks, and that I do look at is, you have to be consistent and be able to have and demonstrate love, so that there's always a bridge to come back. In humanity, we might say, oh, they wronged me, I'm going to cut that time and burn that bridge, I don't ever want to see them again. But you see, it's all about relationship. God has his arms are open, saying, come to me whenever you come back. I'm right here, I'm right next to you. In our own lives, we also, I think, have to make sure that we don't burn the bridges, so that when they do hopefully say, oh, I need God, I need a change in my life, that they can come back into relationship with us as people, and ultimately to God the Father above, maybe even by our own influence and the love that we demonstrate.
Amen. Amen. Good words, good wisdom from a godly man who loves the Lord. And I appreciate you. I'm so glad we got to meet in North Dakota and become friends. Hopefully, we can work together soon.
I look forward to that.
You're an amazing man. I appreciate you. I pray that your album will be a great success, will touch so many people, and will be a great, 10,000 seat arena sold out. That's God never gives up on our, when we do things his way, he has his way of just like, surprising us with like, okay, I know you like this, so here you go. So I'm praying for you and Andrea and your family. Thank you for your time. Guys, please, Greg Hager, go listen to his music. Take his music to your pastor and say, hey, we need to have him here. And it'll be great, wonderful, original music and from a godly man. Thank you so much for your time, Greg. I appreciate you. Hopefully, I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Nazareth. It's so great to be on your podcast. I'll look forward to again doing it sometime, and hopefully, like you said, that we can work together in a professional capacity and bring comedy and music maybe in the same venue.
Maybe in Japan we can do it.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Thank you, brother.
Sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. By the way, I just was speaking of albums and stuff. I just dropped my new album called 40 Years in America. It's a very funny album. Of course, it was taped live in front of 1,200 women in Sacramento, California, a few weeks ago, and it's ready. It will be out on Spotify and iTunes and all these places in the next week or two. Just look it up. 40 Years in America. It's my comedy, my latest material. So if you want to listen to it and watch it, you can listen to it because it's an audio album. And if you want to watch other stuff, you can go to my YouTube or to my Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and watch. We put shorts every day sometimes. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting this podcast by subscribing to it and letting your friends know about it. So can you please, there's a subscribe button somewhere on wherever you listen to it, just subscribe. Don't just say, oh, I'll listen to it next week. Subscribe. And there's a donation button which you don't have to push on the right hand. Never been pushed before, so you don't have to. So we take care of all that. But I don't know why I even have it there. But it's there. It's on your left here. So it doesn't matter. We love you guys. We thank you so much for watching, and you have a great night. God bless you.